James, if you have any problems or anything, just let me know. I can hear you. I can't talk back to you, but I can hear you. So even if you respond to this, I won't be able to talk back to you. Thank you, sir. I've been listening to what you have to say. Thanks so much for telling me about it.
Thank you. These are the leaders of the poor people campaign in Texas.
Oh, yeah.
From the New York Times.
Yes,
Thank
give me a reference.
you so much.
Well, thank you for coming.
Dominique, where she go?
Oh, great.
She gonna represent everybody. This is the press person for poor people. National campaign nominee. New York Times.
David, I'm glad you got here. Let me see. I can give you my number. I definitely have a number. Yeah, all right. Write it down for you right now. Thank you so much.
All right, we're live. Let's go. Everybody, let's go.
Oh, hold on. That's good trouble. Did you get the...
Steve, you got my... We live.
All right. Good afternoon. Day 3 of the March for Democracy is on the books. Give yourselves a round of applause. My name is Monique Hamilton. I'm the Deputy Comms Director for Repairs of the Breach, Digital Lead for the Poor People's Campaign. And I am so happy to be here. I may look a little ragged, but my soul is rested. Okay? I want to give just a few housekeeping notes before we get started on this press conference. We're trying to make sure that we keep everything as concise as possible. These people have been walking all day long. So we want to make sure that we get them in and out. We're asking our speakers to keep their remarks to 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Once the speakers have given their statements, I will then ask for questions. I will ask for a live question first, then we will read a question from the Zoom, and we will continue in that order for the remainder of the program. And I just thank you all for being here. Without any further ado, I'd like to introduce to you the President of Repairs of the Breach and the co-chair of the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival, Reverend Dr. William J. Barber II.
And because we believe in bottom up, I want to introduce the 3 tri-chairs first of the Texas Poor People's Campaign, who represent that campaign and 40 other groups that came together for this particular phase of our national season of moral direct action. So the spokesperson today will be Ms. Stephanie Swanson. Would you all step up together? And she'll introduce the other 2 persons that are with her.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Swanson. I'm the tri-chair of the Texas Poor People's Campaign. This is Danita Jones. She's also a tri-chair. And Miss Stephanie Wilkins. So we are so proud of all of the marchers that came out today. Our campaign down here in Texas is tired. We've had a very rough legislative session. There are attacks, continuous attacks on every single community. Our group is very diverse, and all of us felt it equally as much. And so when they went after voting rights, we had enough. The rallies at the Capitol weren't cutting it. We asked Reverend Barber to come down and step in and help. And he helped us plan this march. So we are so excited that everyone is here, and we're so excited that all the marchers have done so well. And we're very excited about the rally tomorrow at the Capitol.
All right.
Thank you all for being here. Like Stephanie said, we were tired, we were broken, and we didn't know what else to do. So when you're tired, you typically get on your knees and pray. Well, we sent an email to Reverend Barber, the next best thing. And so we asked him to come down and help amplify our voice, because our voices weren't being heard. And so over these past 3 days, along with the help of you all, our voices have been amplified. People are hearing us. People are paying attention to Texas. And it's time that people pay attention to the people.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Good afternoon. My name is Reverend Stephanie Wilkins, and I just can't add much more to what my sisters in the struggle have said to you, but I'm going to say what Fannie Lou Hamer said. We were sick and tired of being sick and tired. We know that we are on the side of right. We know that whenever you're doing anything for the least of these, it is for everyone. It's for everyone's benefit. The word tells us, whatever you've done to the least of these, my brothers and sisters, you've done it unto me. And so what's happening in Texas and across the country, we know that it's wrong. It is more than a political issue. It is becoming a political issue, but it is a moral issue. This is about right versus wrong. And what they're doing is wrong, to silence our voice by trying to take away our vote, which my great-grandmother, my grandmother, my mother fought for. It is wrong. And I'm so thankful that when we called out to Reverend Barbara and Reverend Liz, they came. The staff came. And we have come together. And we are hot. And we are tired. But we're not going to ever give up.
That's right.
We're in this fight together. Forward together.
Not one
step back.
You see why these are the three tri-chairs and leaders here in Texas. When they called, and Reverend Liz and I talked, and we reached out to clergy across the state of Texas and poor and low wealth advocates, and Brother Beto, if he'll come up, and Reverend Liz. And we said we need to nationalize Texas. We talked to Roland Martin and others, Barbara Arwine, Latasha Brown, Reverend Jackson. So just like in the 60s, they nationalized Alabama to change the country. We need to nationalize Texas so that it would be clear Texas is the canary in the mine, if you will, and why there had to be federal action. But I want to give you, in the media, a little historical clarity about how we got here also, because it's important to understand this is not a moment. It's a movement. Poor People's Campaign has 42 coordinating committees, 42 states, over 2,500 religious leaders that are connected, and over 300 partners. And on June 20th of last year, we had a virtual march on Washington. Over 2.7 million people showed up. And we had another one on the 21st of June, and over 2 million people showed up. And we announced in June that we were starting a 365-day mobilization toward a mass poor people's low-wage workers assembly to address the issues facing the 140 million poor and low-wealth people in this country, systemic racism, particularly as is seen through voter suppression, systemic poverty, ecological devastation, denial of health care, the war economy, where we spend 56 cents of every discretionary dollar on the war economy and less than 16 cents on education and infrastructure, and the false moral narrative of religious nationalism and white evangelicalism. And we were going to mobilize for 365 days to have the largest gathering, interracial, multi-gender, multiracial, multi-sexual gathering of multi-religion, of poor and low-wealth people and their advocates, June 18, 2020. And that's where we were headed, Reverend Jackson. And then we saw people starting to fumble and stumble and trip all over themselves to just do what was right, Barbara, based on the Constitution. You know, we saw the $15 minimum wage turned back because of a doggone filibuster. And we saw one senator from Arizona do the dance like she was happy to block living wages for 32 million people. Sinema is her name. We saw Manchin from West Virginia, who ran on raising the living wage, who actually signed off on the 40 People's Act when McConnell was leader. Block and block. and we saw this filibuster that has never been used to bring people together. That not only has been used to block, was used to block every anti-slavery law, it was used to block women's suffrage, parts of the New Deal. It was used to block minimum wage. It was used to block consumer protection. It was even used to block a rule that would have said women could have their contraceptives as a part of their insurance packages when they work for corporations, and they filibustered it, but they said they would vote to allow Viagra to be used. So the filibuster is sick. It has nothing to do. It is what it says, filibuster. And any politician that says, if you don't have the filibuster, you'll lose democracy, they don't understand that the filibuster time and time again has often killed democracy. And so in June, we went to Manchin's office, and over 800 people showed up from the hood to the holler. I'm giving you a little history. And the next morning, he came out saying he would compromise. And all of a sudden, he didn't compromise all the way, but he came out with something because he saw people on his doorstep that looked like him from his holler.
That's right.
And then the folks said, not us, they said, let's go to D.C. We went to D.C., led by people from West Virginia, Ohio, and Kentucky. They wouldn't let us in the door. They had written ahead to want to meet with him. They said no, so they said, let's go in the street. So Reverend Jackson and Barbara Arwine and Liz and I had no better sense than to follow. And they arrested more people on June 23rd than they arrested on January 6th. Simply because we were trying to see. And so when that happened, the folks said, well, we need to stop now. So we announced on July the 12th, and we were going to have from July the 12th to August the 6th a season. And then after August the 6th, if things didn't change, we'd intensify even the more. July 12th, tens of thousands of people put in calls to the White House and to every Senate office. 5 things. At that time, 4 things. Immediately end the filibuster. Number 2, fully pass the real John Lewis bill, which is the For the People's Act that he wrote with his dying breath. When it's written, because it isn't written yet, pass the Voting Rights Act, Restoration Act. Pass $15 living wage, and do it now. The next week on the 19th, over 100 women, here 2 of them right here, were arrested, looking like the fullness of America, on Constitutional Avenue. Then the next week, we were in 27 states, 54 Senate offices, Democrats and Republicans. I was with Reverend Jackson. We were in Arizona. Senators of 39 people were arrested at a senator's office for asking for a meeting and refusing not to move.
Shame.
Because our office is in a corporate building. And the people don't have First Amendment right for a redress of their issues. And then in the middle of that, when we were headed to Arizona, that's when we got the call from the folk in Texas. And they said, will you come? And we said we have no choice.
Right.
Because Texas is our Selma.
That's right.
And we nationalized. And we said we call it the March for Democracy, a moral resurrection. When we came here, over 200 arrests have already happened in this season of nonviolent civil disobedience. And here's why we march. We must have federal voting rights protections now. Don't tell us you can't do infrastructure and protect the infrastructure of this democracy.
That's right.
And we know that that means in order to have voting rights protections, you got to do 4 things. I learned this from Barbara Arwine. She's one of the greatest lawyers there is on these matters. Number 1, you got to protect access and expand it. Am I right, Barbara? Help me. If I'm wrong, you correct me because I'm not a lawyer. Number 2, you got to deal with gerrymandering.
That's right.
Number 3, you got to get dark money out.
That's right.
And number 4, you have to have ethics, a way of looking at the ethics of all. And those 4 components, all of that's in the original For the People's Act and media for the national media that Manchin signed off on.
Right.
When McConnell was leader, he signed the For the People's Act as a co-sponsor.
Yes.
Once it was possible to come to the floor, all of a sudden the U.S. Chamber of Commerce calls him, because they said they did in the paper. The rich oil folk from Texas, and he started backing up. Even though 79% of West Virginians want what's in the For the People's Act. 79% of West Virginians. We also said that we needed this to be done by August 6th. Why? Because August 6th is the 56th anniversary of the signing of the Voting Rights Act, and it's a shame and a disgrace that we have less voting rights in America today than we had 56 years ago when Lyndon Baines Johnson signed the Voting Rights Act and just, if I'm not mistaken, handed the first pen to Eric Dirksen, a Republican, and the second pen to Dr. King from Illinois, Dirksen from Illinois. This is what we are saying must happen. We cannot let states' rights and states' retrogression take over our country. These laws are not just against black folk. 56 million people use the other ways of voting other than on election day. 56 million in the last election. These legislators are going after retrogression. They are trying to take away access to the ballot that people have already been using, even before this year. That's retrogression. We can't have racist and class-based gerrymandering. And we can't allow this country to further become a civil oligarchy. And as Brother John Nichols says, a dollarocracy rather than a democracy. And there's no moderate position on this. In fact, there's no left position or right position, because when you swear to uphold the Constitution, you don't swear to be moderate. You don't swear to be liberal. You don't swear to be conservative. You swear to uphold. And one of the things you swear to do is establish justice. The next thing you swear to do is to ensure that no one denies or abridges the right to vote. And the next thing you swear to do is to ensure equal protection under the law. Compromising is nothing but capitulation to money. And we're saying that because we've seen movement now. Since we've been marching, Senator Warnock's got some strength. He's called people in. They're meeting now. Now they're talking about doing something before the end of the session. Before we were marching, they were talking about maybe October, November.
Right. Not happening.
But we got to make sure that we don't come out with something that puts us right back here 2 years from now.
That's right.
And Democrats particularly, though I'm not pushing for that, I'm going to say it. If you mess around and let this extremist group of people take over the voting rules, you won't make it back in 22 and 24 and 26. That's their goal. And more importantly, the progressive agenda. Because the same people trying to restrict the vote want to block living wages, health care, so forth and so on. And so, we got to end this filibuster, and I'm through. We will continue to intensify. We cannot allow the bridge to every other piece of public policy, which is voting. It makes no sense to have physical bridges, and then you allow the bridge voting, that's the bridge to every other policy in this democracy, to be divided, destroyed, and done in with. Now, how are we going to intensify it? Reverend, I just got off the phone, Bishop, with over 1,000 religious leaders and low-wage workers who are coming to D.C. on Monday.
That's right.
For civil disobedience and nonviolent direct action.
Yes.
Over 1,000 of them, and they're standing up every day. I spoke to the Texas state legislators yesterday and said for them to stand strong and don't be fooled. Don't let somebody tell them we'll give you the Voting Rights Act restoration, which hadn't even been written, and then walk away from the For the People's Act. They said they were going to stand strong. I heard recently from the Vice President's office reached out about a group of us, Reverend, some clergy and poor and low-wealth folk and some voting rights lawyers coming to meet with them that's going to tell them the truth. We sent a letter weeks ago from thousands of faith leaders to members of the Senate, the White House. I've heard from the White House about the desire to meet with poor and low-wealth impacted people, because I'm not going to go on a meeting by myself. I want the people impacted, the 140 million poor and low-wealth people, to be there with us. And moral leaders and voting rights lawyers and economists, they want to meet with us to look at how voting rights, economic justice, like living wages and infrastructure from the bottom up, are key to the healing of the nation. You can't heal the nation unless you do this. And so we're in it because now is the moment. We march now, we stand now, we're willing to go to jail now, because now is the moment. And the last thing I want to say is this history is that for the media, This country breaks filibusters when it wants to.
Yes.
The rules always get changed. And if we hadn't broken filibuster, we wouldn't have a civil rights law.
That's right.
That's how we got. They broke the filibuster. But then it was a courage. At least you had to stand on the floor and defend it.
Right.
This is a coward filibuster.
That's right.
Ain't no courage in it.
No.
Any man or woman that calls themselves a man or woman should be ashamed to stand behind it. It's weak.
Yes, sir.
It's puny. Huh? But we putting Supreme Court justices on the Supreme Court for life with 51 votes.
That's right.
We passed the COVID relief bill, which we should have, with 51 votes.
Yes.
They're talking about a reconciliation infrastructure bill with 51 votes. Well, if all of that can be done with 51 votes, you can save this democracy and voting rights with 51 votes. You can pass living wages with 51 votes. You can ensure the justice for our immigrants with 51 votes. You can stop going to John Lewis's damn grave and saying you love him, but you won't stand for what he fought for while he was living.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm sick and tired of the pettiness. All up on people's graves. Let me tell you, politicians, I don't know why the Spirit's on me like this, but let me tell you, politicians, what the Bible said. Woe unto those who love the tombs of the prophets.
Whoa.
But when the prophets are alive, you claim you won't stand with them. John Lewis is still alive.
Yes, sir.
Because the 40 People's Act, it still has his ink on it.
Yes, sir.
And no senator should ever go to another memorial of John Lewis or Dr. King or Rabbi Heschel
Yes.
if you have not attached your signature to this bill
Thank you.
and saved the heart of this democracy.
Yeah.
Brother Beto.
I gotta tell you, we are so lucky to be in the presence of so many courageous Texans and Americans who've walked these 27 miles over the last 3 days, who are helping to bring attention and focus, not just from across this state, but from across this country, to the most important issue before us. The fact that our democracy is being attacked unlike any other time in this country's history since the Civil War. That's exactly what the President of the United States recently said in Philadelphia. What he has not said, and what we have the power to say now for him, and hopefully to get him to say, is that the next step of political courage is to make sure that we get the For the People Act through the Senate. As Bishop Barber said, they've made exceptions to the filibuster for fast-track trade deals. You can pass them on a 51-vote majority.
Yes, sir.
For budget deals, 51-vote majority. For Supreme Court judges,
Yes, sir.
51-vote majority. For federal judges, 51-vote majority. We're asking for just one more exception, a 51-vote majority for voting rights legislation. If we fail at this moment of truth, we do not just fail the Democratic Party or the Republican Party or the generation alive today. We fail this country and every generation that follows ours, because Abraham Lincoln called us this the last best hope of earth. And we have inherited the struggle and the sacrifice of everyone who has come before us. And we either make the most of it now at this moment of truth, or we squander it forever. The folks on this march, and even more of them who are coming tomorrow, 10 a.m. in front of the state capitol to rally for the right to vote, these people will not be found wanting or lacking in courage at this moment of truth. In fact, we are trying to give the president the power he needs to make this his undying, unyielding, uninterrupted focus until we pass the For the People Act, get voting rights in this country, and protect American democracy for the next generation. That's what we're here to do. And we hope to see you tomorrow, 10 a.m. Saturday, in front of the state capitol. We're going to have the Poor People's Campaign, impacted communities, more than 40 allied organizations. And if that's not enough, we're going to have Willie Nelson, one of the great American heroes of all time, who are going to be here. Last thing that I want to say, it is so extraordinarily powerful to have Reverend Jesse Jackson here in Texas with us. This man could be anywhere literally in the world. He just got back from France, where he was awarded the Legion of Honor for his service globally to the cause of human rights on planet Earth. He was a leader in the original civil rights and voting rights era that secured the 64 and 65 Civil Rights and Voting Rights Acts. He's been there every single year and decade since, making this a better country. And he chose to be here, and not just to be here for the press conference. I walked beside Reverend Jackson. He was walking the miles. He put in the distance today. If that's not inspiring to us right now, I don't know what will be. So, Reverend Jackson, we are so grateful to be in this with you. Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Before you come. We certainly are glad, and I want to say that we honor Reverend Jackson as an elder of the movement who's still in the fight. Normally they say elders are for counsel and young folk are for war, but he's counseling and warring. And I want you all to know that we've been having conversations already that after this, so folk are clear, they don't move by the 6th, they take a recess, we go into state capitals all over this country and mobilize, and starting in West Virginia, starting right there. Because that's what has to happen. It's always from the bottom up. And so we are so thankful. And we're not against anybody. We supporting everybody that's in the battle. What we say is you don't have to be under the same banner, but you ought to be in the same battle.
Right.
Don't have to be under the same banner, but you ought to be at the same battle. In addition, as he comes, Lucy Baines Johnson is coming tomorrow.
Yes.
She talks about how it hurts her to see what her dad has signed into law being rolled back. We got a whole group of theomusicologists from around the country, Miss Yar Allen, that are coming, and the artists are saying they're getting ready to organize. Artists, they are organizing to speak out all over this country. But as we come at this moment, would you welcome our brother, our elder, our warrior, Jesse Jackson.
Thank you, Bishop Barber and Beto and Dr. Barbara and Wine. I was blessed to be at Selma Part 1. John Lewis and Jose Williams and Miss Boynton, Daisy Boynton in Selma, Alabama. And did Selma Part 2 in Texas. We marched in to obtain the right to vote, to attain the right. Now we march to maintain the right to vote.
That's right.
And in many ways, our dreams have been realized through the vote, not through sticks and stones, but through the vote. So today we know two things. One, if we lose this battle, democracy will lose and Democrats will lose.
That's right.
If we lose, Democrats and democracy will lose.
That's right.
We seek justice. We seek to open the doors of opportunity for every American. One thing we didn't have in 65, 18 years didn't have the right to vote in 1965.
That's right.
So in Vietnam, they couldn't vote. Lieutenants couldn't vote bilingually. They only vote English, couldn't vote bilingually. Since 1965, we opened up 18-year-olds can vote. Women can vote.
Disabilities.
So here we are today, making this point very clear. One is that we've seen the history of filibustering. That's a glorified way of blocking progress.
That's right.
Blocking the American dream. I submit to you, if we lose, democracy will lose, and Democrats will lose. So I'm convinced that they have an interest in this state. There's something pernicious about it. We're not in a regular, we're in a civilization crisis. Civilization crisis.
That's right.
When you in fact have last president lead the drive to deny the validity of the election, that's a civilization crisis.
That's right.
He has a following, people who find him blind as a cult leader. When you deny the right to vote, deny the validity of our democracy. Kennedy won by 113,000 votes. Nixon had enough decency. But the protester, he accepted the outcome. Ford, Vice President Gore had more votes than Clinton,
Bush.
more votes than Bush.
That's right.
And they stopped the count at 519, 27,000 votes in the ballot count had not been counted.
He didn't.
So here we are again at the crossroads of America. One, the protected right to vote. You can't accept the state's right to vote.
That's right. No.
Civil War, after we crisis this level, Civil War 1861, 65, Lincoln, in his generosity, caved in too quickly.
That's right.
He forgave those who engaged in treason and terrorism, killing Americans. and he gave the journalists who led it. He pardoned them. And he left in the hands of the segregators, the slave masters, the government, to control labor, wages, workers, civil rights, social justice, and criminal justice system. When the war was over, because blacks had been freed, enough had been freed in 1863, 200,000 joined the Union Army. The South was gaining on the North. As far north as Gettysburg, is Antietam, Maryland. Blacks, 200,000 soldiers, joined the Union Army and beat the South back. For that, the segregation masters never forgave them. Here we are today, one more time. Here we are today. Hear me if you will. That when they got the 10 years of Reconstruction, another 90 years of racial apartheid.
That's right.
Which this generation was part of. I'm glad to have been a part of the marches in that time. Yeah, I marched because I can't help it.
Can't help it.
There's a sense of urgency about this thing.
Yes.
The president must assume a leadership. I hope he'll meet with us next week.
That's right.
Yes.
We will meet with President Biden.
Yes.
3 or 4 of us to talk about what is at stake here.
Yes.
And why, and we're going to meet with, going to West Virginia in a few days. Meet with the people there. People who, hardest working poor people in America in West Virginia.
West Virginia.
Hardest working white poor people in America. They go down beneath the soil every day, come up full of coal. A coal mine dies every 6 hours. So West Virginia needs this struggle. We fight for decent wages and fight for job security.
Yes, sir.
So it's not close, Reverend, that on August 28th, the day of Dr. King's dream speech, there'll be a march in Washington. We'll be marching in state capitals around the country. We have, the dream has been realized from Selma to the White House, but it's on attack now.
That's right.
We must focus on state capitals in Confederate states, in Little Rock and Arkansas, and Atlanta and Georgia and Atlanta, should I say, and Austin, Texas. We shall on that day be marching state capitals around the country.
Capitals around. That's right. That's right.
Focus on the Congress and the Senate. We can win this battle. We must fight this battle. To be sure, we have done a lot in the last few days. Barbara, you're the best organizer of our time.
Oh, yeah.
You're the crown jewel of organizers, and you care so deeply. Beto, we thank you for your sense of witness.
Oh, yes.
Reverend Freddie Haynes was not here today. Reverend Freddie Haynes, Reverend Barbara, and Beto have carried the struggle, so we looked at it, talked with them every day, trying to get here. So I want to thank you again. We intend to meet President Biden if we can next week, the leadership of this group, talk with him about the urgency. If we lose, he loses. If we lose, democracy loses.
That's
right. If we win, he wins. Democracy wins. I was in France last weekend. I saw this crisis from afar, Barbara. On the one hand, President Trump leading the drive against the validity of democracy. Right to vote was first item on the agenda in all of Europe last week. And then the issue of the bills, the Reconstruction bills. Let me say this to you: if you get Johnson got war on poverty and OEO, he's known for Voting Rights Act. You get the right to work, don't have the right to organize and to vote. You lose your dignity and your self-determination.
That's right.
It's not enough to get the Reconstruction plan. Not enough to get bridges built. We need healing and we need hope. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. That is clear. I want to bring up, excuse me, in just a second, this powerful sister, my co-chair in the Poor People's Campaign. But I also want to mention, as we do, interject a couple of things. When we look at the past election, I think some people that don't understand the urgency of this moment are living in a delusion, Barbara.
That's right.
Biden didn't win by 7 million votes.
No.
He won by 7 million popular votes, but he only won about 40,000 cumulative votes in 3 states. And all of these state legislatures are going against those legal methods of voting.
Right.
Don't ever forget that word, media. Retrogression. Retrogression. And we have to connect the dots. We've said to the president from afar and up close, you need to come to Texas.
Right.
And not just talk to black folk, talk to black, Latino, white, because these bills are not just black against black folk. Right. They're going to hurt everybody. You need to go to West Virginia. You need to go to Arizona.
That's right.
Then you need to say to Senator Schumer and Speaker Pelosi, I want to come to the well of the Congress.
That's right.
And just like LBJ, Kennedy, Lincoln, and Johnson, go to the well of that Congress with the full power and weight of the people and the presidency and say we cannot and will not have one part of our infrastructure built up a little bit with a small infrastructure bill. And I don't say small in a negative way. The Poor People's Campaign would say we need $10 trillion to really lift from the bottom over 10 years. And then allow it to be destroyed through the erosion of the infrastructure of our democracy. That's the kind of leadership this moment requires.
Yes, requires.
And as Reverend said, this is not about whether or not the Democrats are going to survive or the Republicans are going to survive. This is about whether democracy will survive.
Yes.
Whether the experiment of America will survive. And listen, maybe even whether the world as we know it survives, because if America is in chaos and rolling back votes,
Yes.
and we're supposed to be the leader,
Yes.
what does that say to the other growing democracies around the country?
That's right.
I've been invited by Pope Francis and the Eastern Orthodox Pope to the Vatican in October to sit with other bishops to talk about economic justice and poverty, because the Pope said recently that poverty and neoliberalism and trickle-down economics was taking us backwards. It's going to be a sad thing if I had to sit in there in the Vatican with the Pope and the Eastern Orthodox popes and those other bishops and say, Pope, Mr. Francis, Brother Francis, Reverend Francis, Pope Francis, we need to amend that. Not only is trickle-down economics, and not only is neoliberalism taking the country and the world backwards, retrogression and voter suppression in America is leading the world backwards.
That's right.
That's how serious this is. Reverend Liz Steele Harris has been on marches walking 150 miles.
My.
She's a serious theologian, a serious sister, an organizer. We thank God for her. She walked all the way, and she's got a word. Dr. Liz Steele Harris, would you welcome her?
All right. Thank you so much. As was said, my name is Reverend Dr. Liz Steele Harris. I'm the director of the Cairo Center for Religions, Rights, and Social Justice at Union Theological Seminary and co-chair with Bishop William Barber of the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival. Our democracy is in peril.
Right.
We have fewer voting rights today than we did because of preclearance and all of these changes, voting abridgment, than we did 56 years ago. We live in a nation that has the wherewithal to end poverty immediately, and yet there are 140 million people who live in poverty or one emergency, one storm, one healthcare crisis,
That's right.
one job loss from it. 32 million workers in this nation could have enough to thrive, not just barely survive,
That's right.
if we were to put the federal minimum wage
That's right.
up to $15 an hour. And so we see this attack on our democracy and the lack of economic justice happening in this, the richest country in the world, as a moral abomination.
Yes.
It has been powerful to march these 27 miles with the people of Texas.
Yes.
And I am here to tell you, people are ready
That's
for a
right.
moral resurrection.
That's right. That's right.
People are
right.
ready
Yeah.
to save the soul of this democracy. And it's when people are on the move, like the people in Texas are now, and like people all across this nation, this is when change happens. We build up the power to make those in power say yes when they've been saying no, no, no to us so far. It was powerful to march through the streets from Georgetown to here in Austin and have people come out from from apartment buildings to businesses
Yes.
and say, we're with you.
That's
right.
And these were people of every gender,
Beautiful.
every race,
That's right.
Yes.
and from different parts of the state.
Yes.
We will be strong and powerful tomorrow when we make our voices heard at the state capitol at 10 a.m. We want to call all those that are interested in justice, all those who are committed to democracy, and all of those that want to lift from the bottom so that Texas and this nation and this world, the poor and low income, those whose voting rights are being abridged, can rise. And then we'll be in D.C. with the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for more revival.
Yes.
On Monday,
Yes.
as we take part in this season of nonviolent moral direct action,
That's right.
building up the power to be able to end the filibuster, to pass all the provisions of the Voting Rights Act, of the For the People Act, to restore the Voting Rights Act, to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour, and to have permanent protections for all 11 million undocumented immigrants in this nation. We say in our work, we're going to move forward together and not one step back. And that is what this march, and that is what this movement and the coalition of partners from across Texas and across the nation are just doing. We're moving forward together, not one step back.
Come on, give it up for Reverend Liz. And Reverend Liz always reminds us of those numbers. In Texas, there are 12.6 million poor and low-wealth people in this state. 5 million that make less than $15 an hour. In 2016, the presidential election was decided by 800,000 votes. 2.7 million poor and low-wealth people did not vote or were suppressed in one way or the other. 30% of the electorate is now poor and low wealth. It wasn't that way in 68. Reverend Jett. 30%, 65 million. In 15 states, including southern states, the poor and low wealth people who are already registered to vote, not new registered, already registered, would vote at 1 to 22% higher. They could turn states from Michigan all the way to Texas. But any voter suppression undermines that.
Right.
And then that undermines policies like living wages and health care. Now, there's a sister, Freddie Haynes and I were talking about her the other day. She's about 6'7", when it comes to constitutional law. She's a giant among women and men. She does not ever, I've never heard this sister bite her tongue. I tried to make her bite her tongue one time, and she wouldn't bite her tongue. I hit her, and she didn't bite it. And she's clear and focused, has led some of the major civil rights battles in this country, and won. One thing to lead them, it's another thing to win them. And so she's been a part of this from the beginning. She's a lawyer in the courtroom and a protester in the jail cell. But wherever she is, she's speaking the truth, standing the truth, and always got a brief on what's the truth. Barbara Arwine with Transformative Network. Come on and bring her.
Good afternoon. First of all, thank you, Reverend Barber. The Transformative Justice Coalition, which I head with the mighty attorney Daryl D. Jones, who is here.
Come on, Daryl.
And come on, Daryl. And has been carrying that flag throughout the entire day and was with me when we were all arrested, right?
That's right.
On Monday.
On Monday.
And was arrested himself on last Thursday. Daryl Jones is also one of the pillars of our movement for justice. Well, I want to just say two things really quickly. One, the President of the United States has to stand up in this moment. He cannot say this is about what some senators may not want to vote for. He has to bring his power to say that you got to vote. He has to say, oh, Schumer, no recess.
None.
You haven't even done your job. You don't deserve a recess until you save our democracy.
That's right.
Until you put the For the People Act on his desk. He should say nothing have acceptable. The other thing I want to say is that the people of this nation are rising up. They're not sitting back and taking some kind of okey doke. They're not saying that you can destroy the democracy that my father, who was a proud Texan, that they fought for.
That's right.
That my grandfather, who was a proud Texan, fought for. You can't do that. We're going to keep fighting until we free to vote.
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 Free to vote. All right. Now, brothers and sisters media, we're closing here. Take a few questions. But tomorrow, the first people you're going to hear speak are impacted people. Poor and low wealth impacted people from every race, color, creed. Because when we do something in the Poor People's Campaign, and we agree with Brother Beto and the other 40 groups, we don't just put up people who speak for folk. We put up the people who are the true spokespersons. Today, this press conference went this way because we had some announcements to make and some clarity points we needed to make from leadership. And even when we meet with Biden, and even when we meet with Vice President Harris and President Biden or any of them, we will take impacted people in with us. The day is over for going in representing people and they're not in the room as though they can't represent themselves. So our job is to get the door open. It's not to go in the door by ourselves. And we say to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and to ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Group, you might have the money. But not only do we have the people, we got a moral conviction that money can't buy. And if you think this is something, you ain't seen nothing yet. Because this moral resurrection is real. And every resurrection shakes things up. Am I right about it, Bishop? Am I right, Liz? In fact, a resurrection, just the promise of a resurrection, according to the Bible, will make the dead get up to see the resurrection. I'll tell you about that later. But so there is a resurrection, a moral resurrection, and we're not going to quit. Questions from the media? Yes, sir, Brother Roland Martin.
Dr. Barber, Texas House Democrats have been in D.C. for going on 3 weeks. President Biden hasn't met with them. And that's Vice President Harris. What does it say that the president himself has not made the time to meet with those Democrats who are standing up for voting?
I think President Biden ought to put them on Air Force One, fly them to Texas, have a meeting on Air Force One, that's federal land, right?
Yes.
Huh?
Yes, sir.
Dare the constables here to come on there and get them, and then have a rally with them, a meeting with them, and then go back with them to the well of the Congress, and have those Texas legislators sitting right there in the front. He's got to, because they have power, and he has more power than he's using. Yeah. He's got more power. I had a chance before he was elected. I'll get you, Reverend. I had more before he was elected. I did a Easter program with him on his podcast, and I said to him, "What you think, what your political consultants might be telling you is possible, is going to fundamentally change through this pandemic." You check the record. I said this pandemic is going to open up pain and expose pain, poverty pain, race pain in a way that will give you an opportunity because you can see it. This fight for voting rights and the fact that the filibuster has already been used to block part of the COVID relief plan that would have lifted 32 million people, the people who we had to go to work first, got sick first, got infected first, and died first, and now it's threatening the democracy. I said to him, you will have your Lyndon Baines Johnson, Kennedy, Lincoln moment presented to you. Said this in March, Jesse. I don't know why the Spirit says say that. He wasn't even president. He wasn't even elected. I hadn't even endorsed him. I said, but I believe if you get to be president, you're going to have a moment delivered to you. And the question is going to be, what do you do with that moment? Go to West Virginia, Mr. President. We love you enough to tell you this. Meet with those folk, those 79% of West Virginians that say Manchin is wrong. 81% of Democrats. Go to Arizona. Push cinema. Meet with the Latino community, the black community, the white community, the gay community. Put those folk on a plane, come to Texas, have a meeting right out here in the airport, fly them right back, and when you go back, already have Pelosi and Schumer inviting you to the well of the Congress. And I guarantee you, if you take this to the well of the Congress, it will well up a sentiment of resurrection and transformation in this country, and you will be able to do more than you even think you can do now. But you got to get the leadership. Online question. Let me get him and then, hold on. Yeah.
For those of us who went on the march, could you describe back your impressions of the march? How many people participated?
We had 125 wait a minute now, limit because of COVID. We turned down thousands who wanted to march. We had to limit it for COVID because we had to make sure everybody was vaccinated, proven, and tested, and had masks. But for the rally, it's wide open. Everybody can come.
So it's 125 limit on the march?
A day. So over a course of a day, we had over 1,000 people. We had multiple shifts. So over the course of the day, we had several thousand people to march. But what I'm saying to you is we could have had thousands every shift. We kept turning people down because our public health officials told us don't do that in Texas with the COVID and the Delta and all those things.
How would you compare this to the Selma march?
Because Selma was about nationalizing the South and Alabama. Selma was about pushing a president to do the right thing and a Congress to do the right thing. Selma was about voting rights, but it was also about economic justice, because Dr. King said at the end of the Selma to Montgomery March that the way segregation and regression worked is it was always afraid of the Negro masses and the white masses coming together and voting in a bloc that would change the economic architecture. And it demonstrated it over a number of days. What's different about Selma is what Reverend Jackson said. Then they were trying to attain. Now we're trying to maintain and attain. We're trying to maintain new what we have and attain more. But since Reverend Jackson is here as well and was there, I want him to also speak to this issue and question.
The fear of the coming black people, brown people, women and children. Since the Selma March, we've gone from 4 black congressmen to 60, gone from 2 Latino congressmen to 45, 25 Asians. We are more representative of the democracy today than we were at that time. The bridge experiment was a Bloody Sunday, was a dramatic dimension. Here is not just a drama, it's a trauma of losing what we've gained. And the stakes, if Lyndon Johnson said he did the right moral thing, now Biden has to do a survival thing. If we lose, he loses. We lose, democracy loses. We win, democracy wins, and everybody wins. And everybody wins, there are no losers, because including these growth and growth, everybody wins. Thank you.
Let me take this question, and then it's so hot out here, we don't want nobody to fall out. Yes, sir, thank you. On tomorrow morning, leaving Georgetown, where in the 1930s a white woman took on the Klan and won, will be 151 cars. Why? This is the 151st anniversary of the 15th Amendment. In front of those cars will be a hearse. In that hearse, a casket. On that hearse and in that hearse, copies of all the bills that are trying to bury voting rights, bury access, bury living wages. Symbolic that we will not accept the burial, that there must be a resurrection. The last question online was, had we been invited? I've been invited to the White House. We've been in conversation with the White House. The president, when he met with us before he was elected, said that changing poverty, Liz, would not be ending poverty, would not be a theory of change, not be an aspiration, but a theory of change. And said that he wanted to meet with some religious leaders of all faiths, some impacted people of every color, race, creed, and gender, some voting rights people, and economists and public health specialists. That's the meeting we want. I'm never interested in whether a person meets with me. Not interested in that. And so we are in talks about that meeting. Not a meeting with just black folk, but a meeting with America. And a meeting particularly with the 140 million, the 43% of America, 8 million more that went into poverty during the pandemic. That's who I want to see the president sit with. Those people of every race, creed, color, and sexuality, and moral and religious leaders, and some economists, and voting rights lawyers, and public health specialists, because we presented to him, his economic team, a 14-point plan for the healing of the nation. Am I right, Liz? And right now in Congress, we have a resolution entitled The Third Reconstruction, Ending Poverty and Low Wealth by Building from the Bottom Up. It's got signatures on it. You can check it online and sponsors. We're calling folk to say, do you have the resolve to address the issues? What are they? Systemic racism, systemic poverty, ecological devastation, denial of health care, the war economy, and the false moral narrative of religious nationalism. For almost 50% of this nation is poor and low wealth. Only 39% can afford a $1,000 emergency. Over half of our children are poor and low wealth. This is the moral crisis, but it's an interlocking system of injustices that have to be addressed. We're working on that meeting. We're talking. They called us about it even last week. We've got to have it, but never just with us as representatives of organizations. No, no, no. That's not the season we're in. We need to have the meeting with the people who are impacted most. It's hot. Nose is starting to run. We got one sister. We always close our press conference. Where is she? Y'all don't have to stand in the sister. But this sister is going to sing a song that's right down our line. We're going to stay on live until it's over. Take it away.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, media. Please talk to the people who marched. God bless you. Come tomorrow. 10 o'clock. 9 o'clock we march. But be there tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Willie Nelson, all these folk, Lucy Bain Johnson, come on and sing for us.
So I'm counting on this beautiful choir of moral marchers to help me on the chorus here. And these are words that'll come out of your mouths really easy. All you have to say is, we won't keep quiet, no, on the choruses. Help me out. We are a nation in a bad situation. So many folks are under attack. We gotta stay together, brave this bad weather. We've come too far now to turn back. And we won't keep quiet, no, we won't keep quiet, no, we won't keep quiet, no matter what they do. We won't keep quiet, no, we won't keep quiet, no, we won't keep quiet. How about you? We'll stand with our neighbors, with or without papers. We'll stand with Muslims, Palestinians, and Jews. We won't be scattered, and yes, Black Lives Matter. We will defend our LGBTQs. We won't keep quiet, no. We won't keep quiet, no. We won't keep quiet, no matter what they do. We won't keep quiet, no. We won't keep quiet, no. We won't keep quiet. How about you? We won't be broken, and our truth will be spoken, and our door will stay open to the refugees.
That's what I'm talking about.
It's a revolution in defense of the Constitution. What we are marching for is our democracy. And we won't keep quiet, no. We won't keep quiet, no. We won't keep quiet, no matter what they do. We won't keep quiet, no. We won't keep quiet, no. We won't keep quiet. And how about you?
break my moral commitment. I have people here who have walked. No, I'm not.
No, I'm in North
But
Carolina.
the people in our movement,
I'm going to give you my email.
if they have something they want to talk going on, they ain't gonna tell nobody. I trust the people. I cannot do that. So meet with Rev and Beto. Y'all can talk to them, and when we get the chance to meet, I have a moral, God-sworn commitment.
I sure
If I
will. Look,
can't meet with people in the room, I don't care what it is. I see
Yeah,
it.
I sure do.
They have to be people in the room. I will not break.
will.
I promise
I'm always
on
happy
my
to do
life,
that.
and I will not break. So I'm
Thank you so much. So nice to meet you too. Thank you. Look, thank you for coming. Yes, I'm glad. Look, I'm glad you made it. Because we were concerned about you. You were in the chat. We were concerned about you. We were like, we got to get him here.
Oh, you did.
Eric, my vanilla bean baby.